Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Come Grow Organic with us. My name is Bob Whitney, and I'm the Extension Organic Specialist, and I'm based at Texas A&M AgriLife Research and Extension Center in Stephenville, Texas. And well, it's good to be with you today. We're going to talk a little bit about organic weed control. It's a subject that I get to spend a lot of time with, and have done several different research projects trying to work on organic weed control. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. I want to start off talking a little bit about the Organic Practice Standard. This is what we call the 205, and it's just a list of things that we can do in organic, and a lot of people call it the list of things you cannot do, but it's really a list of, it's a good list of things that we can do, things that we should be doing as we work within the organic world. I want to call your attention to this particular section. This is A of 206, and this talks a little bit about things that we should do in management to prevent crop pests or weeds or diseases from happening. And this is the way that we do function within organic, is we try and prevent these problems. So call attention to number 2, sanitation measures would be something we would be doing to keep out diseases or weed seeds, anything that might be coming into a crop during the season. So we would put that into our plan, how we're going to keep those things from happening. So ideally, it would even start the year before as far as weeds are concerned, so that we would keep the weeds from going to seed and creating a situation in our fields where we got lots of weeds this year because we didn't do a good job last year. So that would be number 3, those cultural practices that prevent weeds from being in our fields. This is just a continuation of it, but I wanted to call your attention to number 4 there, that weeds are controlled through hand weeding or mechanical cultivation. This is a major source of weed control for us. We use a lot of different tools in our fields to control weeds, and we do that before we grow the crop and as we grow the crop. And you'll notice here that organic chemical control, and I say chemicals because we do use these products within organic. They may be organic chemicals, but they're still something that we would use to control a weed. They're not mentioned here, but they are allowed, and so it would be something that we want to talk about. This is our typical scenario. We would use a rotary hoe that you'll see in the picture here. This John Deere rotary hoe is set to take out some weeds in a field that's probably been plowed. Maybe some weed seeds have come up, and we're getting ready to plant the crop. So we'd use a rotary hoe to take them out. We also use a rotary hoe once the crop is planted. We would be coming into a situation, say the crop is not up yet, or it's maybe just barely coming up, but it is planted deeper than our weed seeds. And so as the weed seeds germinate, they're in a white thread stage, very tiny, almost hard to see. We'd come in with a rotary hoe. We're not going to set it deep enough to disturb our planted crop, but they'll certainly take out the weeds, weed seeds, disturb the surface just enough to break that cycle. Then as the crop comes up, yes, we may take a rotary hoe and get a little bit of damage on some of the leaves that are just emerging of our planted crop, but we're going to take out those weeds again because the crop is planted deeper. Then we're going to switch over as we begin to get a bigger crop. We're going to switch over to a set of tillage here that would be some sweeps that you see in the picture here in the center. Along with our finger weeders. This is a great tool for us, allows us to go down the row in the planted crop and take the weeds out between the plants without actually pulling out our planted crop. Again, we kept the weeds small, so they're smaller than our planted crop. The planted crop has a deeper root system and is going to stay in place, or at least that's our hopes if we set everything right. And our sweeps are going to run between the rows and clean out the middles. Just barely under the surface, enough to cut the roots off and to basically allow the plant to dry out. And then, of course, if we get far enough along that we can't get equipment back in, then we're going to be using some hose. Got this picture of this cute couple out there working hard, hoeing. And yeah, we would hope that in our organic fields that we would have taken most of the weeds out, and our hoeing crews would be able to move very rapidly, so that maybe we're not spending very much per acre, but unfortunately that can run up in the $100 to $200 range for most of our crops. And we're fortunate to have hoe hands that can do that, or the producer's actually doing it himself. And then a rescue treatment would be something like the weed zapper that you see in the picture at the top there, something that we would run through the crop when weeds have gotten above the crop. We use this a lot in peanut production and some vegetables, where we can go through and take out, say for instance, pig weeds that have grown really fast, really tall, and we can hit them with the electric current that this machine develops, and it's going to kill the weed. We're just like you would getting zapped. That's what's going to happen to that weed, and we can see the results of this fairly quickly. We'll start to see the weeds wilting, and of course our crop is down below. It's not getting zapped here, and so hopefully we got a good weed kill. It's slow. I'll mention that. I want to make sure you understand that this is a slow machine, something we can just run at a few miles an hour, and sometimes really slow. So it's not something we want to do over every acre. Maybe we've got a place that we've got a lot of weeds that have merged, and we've just gotten behind for whatever reason. We can use a piece of equipment like this, but ideally we're not having to use it over every acre. Now, I mentioned the use of some of these organic chemicals, and this is a list here, and it's fairly complete. We've got a lot of products that you can see on here, but not a whole lot of products. Most of them are botanical, which would be some sort of a kind of an oil base there, but it's also maybe a low pH, as we might get into a vinegar type product or any of our clove or cinnamon oils. Then we get down to some of the oils and soaps. These things are developed organically, and we use some of these in our organic situation. But let me back up and say that these products are kind of like the rescue treatment. We might use them in certain situations, but they're going to burn the crop as well as they're going to burn the weeds. We would be looking at these mostly on an organic field that we want to control weeds, maybe around a fence line or around our wellheads, or as we get into the pivot, maybe around the center pivot point, where we can keep the weeds from being a problem and going to seed and still remain organic. So these are great products to use. We like to use them, but in just a very small situation. We're not trying to treat acres upon acres with these products. And there's a reason for that. And this is the reason. These products are expensive to use. They're fantastic to use, and I'm not putting these two examples here to denigrate them in any way. These are great companies, and they do a great job in having organic products for us. But as you can see, we're going to need a lot of product. It's going to be costly. We're going to have a high gallon per acre, usually such a high gallon per acre that it's not feasible to try and spray these acre upon acre. So as you can tell here, these are great products, but they're expensive per acre. So I just did some cost on them. Again, don't take this as, oh man, look at this. Nobody can use these products. We do use them in certain situations on a small level, but not acre by acre. And they're not designed for that. This next slide just shows you a little bit of using a home plate. Ficertis, great company, great chemical. So I'm not, again, not putting them down. I try, as an extension specialist, I try not to do that. But this was a test I was doing to see if home plate would work a little better with surfactant. And maybe it did. Statistically, no, but overall it did seem to work a little bit better. As you can see the picture, I drew the circle there. I did get some burn there, but at this 6% rate, that's a low rate, and we just didn't get the control that in a field like this. This is a weedy field, and just trying to see what kind of damage I could do at a low rate, low gallons per acre, see if maybe some things would change by different surfactants that I used. And unfortunately I didn't, but again, that doesn't preclude me using the product because we would use it in an organic situation. This is really what I'm interested in, and kind of, it's my last slide, but it gets us to what I want to talk about, which is our bioherbicides. It's kind of a name of putting some things together, biological products that we're using as herbicides. What these are either fungal organisms or bacteria that we have found working on a weed species. Maybe they were growing on a weed or keeping a weed from getting out of control. Maybe this is the thing that keeps a weed from being out of control in most situations, but when we put it into a field situation and we've controlled all the other weeds, suddenly we get a real problem, so like we would with, say, pigweed. Well, these things have been identified generally by researchers, but it could be identified by anybody. If a farmer sees something happening to a weed and, hey, I wonder what's going on here. This weed was starting to get bad, and suddenly began to die, and it looked like it had a disease, much like I might see on a peanut plant or a cotton plant, and say, oh goodness, I'm losing my crop. Well, in this case, the crop is the weed, and we'd like to know what's killing that weed off. And so as researchers, we would pull these organisms out, we'd grow them in a laboratory, reinfect the plants again, see if they actually are doing what they seem to be doing as we watched them in a field situation. Sometimes, if we're fortunate, we do find a particular disease organism for a weed. And we can see one of the earliest ones that I found was in 1989, and I imagine there's been some before that time. But this is on a weed that, hey, I don't like, and that's field bindweed. I was looking for some sort of bioherbicide that I might could use, and still looking to use this particular organism. This is a fungal organism that did do some control of field bindweed. In fact, excellent control. It doesn't seem to continue year after year, but it can be something that we can use. Another one that I would like to do, in fact, we're looking to do some tests on this, is Myrothecium. This particular organism, this fungal organism, is something that we can put on a crop that will control broadleaf weeds. Now, unfortunately, we would not want to put it on a broadleaf crop like cotton or peanuts, because it does work on those particular crops. But if we're growing a corn crop, or we're growing a sorghum crop, any of our grasses, we could use this particular disease, this fungal organism, spray it in high populations, and be able to control things like pigweed. This particular research project showed excellent control of pigweed, but we're a little concerned about it, because if we had susceptible crops around, we may actually control the crop. So it's something we were looking at, something that maybe we could use in a conventional situation with herbicides, or in an organic situation where we're trying to grow a grass crop. The grasses are not going to be susceptible to this particular fungal organism, but hopefully our weeds would be. Then one that we have been using, we started using this in Texas this past year, and that's lockdown. Again, this is a fungus that was found to be killing, really damaging to northern joint vetch. This weed can be a real problem in rice fields. It does well with all the water that we use growing rice. And so if this weed is up and growing by the time we get into flood, it's going to grow faster than the rice and will cover the rice. In fact, it can get so bad that we can't harvest the rice in those areas. We just have to avoid them. And so we can use this particular fungus that is just millions upon millions of spores that we would spray onto the rice field. Not going to damage the rice at all, but as it gets on the northern joint vetch, it is a disease of northern joint vetch. In fact, you can see the picture here showing the lesion development on northern joint vetch. And we would take this particular species of weeds out of rice by spraying this fungus organism onto our rice fields. It is organic approved, not a problem with that. Then we also have been looking at could we add a surfactant, some sort of product with it to extend its range, something that would be approved organically. And yes, we did. We looked at a particular surfactant that helped to keep the fungal organism alive longer and helped to penetrate it into Hemsysphania, which is a real problem, as well as the northern joint vetch. And so we got some better control, and we're continuing to work with this. The neat part about controlling northern joint vetch is that we were able to open up a lot of rice fields, especially in our organic production, and harvest that rice. So this is a great field. These products are easily approved. They don't have to go through tremendous scrutiny, because they're not a chemical, in all the animal studies, that sort of thing. They are native in the U.S. and in Texas. So as we find these particular bioherbicides, we can probably move them into a market fairly quickly. And if there's something we can use in organic, we can work with our different companies that or organizations that look at organic herbicides and get them approved, and so they could be studying those and make sure that they fit within the organic guidelines. So we're pretty excited about this. I think this is going to help us a lot. So that's a little bit about organic weed control and some of the things that we're looking at for organic weed control. Again, if you have any questions, you can contact me. All of our contact information is a part of this video. And it's been good to visit with you today.